Ronaldinho Gaucho, the legend of the eternal smile. Before we get into today's video, make sure you subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell so you never miss a single episode of Deep Sports Stories. Every week we bring you the stories behind the greatest legends the game has ever seen, told the way they deserve to be told. There are players who win trophies, there are players who break records, and then, once in a very long while, there is someone who makes you fall in love with football all over again, every single time they touch the ball. Ronaldo da Assis Moreira was born on the 21st of March, 1980, in Porto Alegre, Brazil. His southern roots gave him his most iconic nickname, Gaucho, a word that carries fierce pride and an untamable spirit. It would turn out to be the perfect name for a man who played football as though no rule in the universe could contain him. Over 2 decades as a professional, Ronaldinho climbed to the very summit of world football. But his story is not simply one of triumph. It is also a story of how quickly a fire can burn out when the wind stops feeding it. A story of genius, joy, carelessness, and a smile that never quite disappeared, even when everything else did. This is Deep Sports Stories, and today, we remember the legend of Ronaldinho. Chapter 1, The Beginning, Porto Alegre. He grew up in the working-class neighborhood of Vila Nova, where football wasn't a hobby, it was a language. His older brother Assis was already a professional at Grêmio, and for young Ronaldinho, he was a mirror, a vision of what was possible. But childhood in the Moreira household was not only made of football dreams. When Ronaldinho was just 8 years old, his father died suddenly. It was a devastating blow. For Ronaldinho, football became his way of stepping into the light when grief cast its shadow. He threw himself into the game with an intensity that went beyond talent. At Grêmio's youth academy, his development alarmed even experienced coaches. In 1997, at 17, he made his professional debut, and in that same year won the Under-17 World Championship as both champion and top scorer. The football world had been put on notice. Chapter 2, PSG and the 2002 World Cup. After 4 seasons establishing himself as one of Brazil's best, Ronaldinho moved to Paris Saint-Germain in 2001 for €5 million. His time in France was a portrait of contradictions, breathtaking talent on match days, and a growing reputation for nightlife that cost him training sessions and the patience of coach Luis Fernandes. In 77 appearances for the club, he was brilliant in flashes and infuriating in others. Paris received a genius, just not a disciplined one. Before leaving France, however, there was a World Cup to play. The 2002 tournament in Korea and Japan would define Ronaldinho's global reputation. Brazil were unstoppable, and Ronaldinho delivered the tournament's most memorable individual moment, a free kick against England in the quarterfinals, launched from 40 yards, that sailed over goalkeeper David Seaman and into the net. Was it intended? Was it genius or fortune? The debate still runs today. What is not debated is the result. Brazil went on to win their 5th World Cup, and Ronaldinho returned to Europe as the most wanted player on earth. Chapter 3, Barcelona, the Golden Years. Barcelona paid €30 million to sign him in 2003, beating off fierce interest from Manchester United and Chelsea. He arrived at the Camp Nou and immediately made his intentions clear, scoring a stunning goal on debut against Sevilla in a late-night fixture that had the crowd on their feet before he had even broken a sweat. The first season was rocky collectively, with Barcelona sitting 15 points off the lead at the winter break. But the arrival of Edgar Davids in January 2004 and Frank Rijkaard's tactical reorganization unlocked something in Ronaldinho. The team went on a 15-match unbeaten run, announcing themselves as a force to be reckoned with. What followed were 2 of the greatest seasons in the history of club football. In 2004-05, Barcelona reclaimed La Liga for the first time in 5 years. In 2005-06, they completed a historic double, the League and the Champions League, playing football so fluid and so devastating that it remains a reference point for the sport to this day. Ronaldinho was the heart of all of it. He won back-to-back FIFA World Player of the Year awards in his only Ballon d'Or. And he delivered what is perhaps the single most iconic individual performance of the entire decade, a display at the Santiago Bernabéu so extraordinary that the Real Madrid supporters rose from their seats and applauded a Catalan player in a Catalan shirt. Not politely, not reluctantly, genuinely, it was an involuntary confession from the home crowd, an admission that what they were watching was simply too beautiful to ignore. He was the king of world football. And then, with startling speed, everything changed. Chapter 4, The Fall and the Long Goodbye. The 2006 World Cup in Germany should have been the moment Ronaldinho cemented his legacy alongside Pelé and Maradona. Brazil were overwhelming favorites. Instead, they were knocked out in the quarterfinals by France, with Ronaldinho a shadow of the player who had terrorized defenses all season. Something broke in Germany, some vital engine that had powered him through those brilliant Barcelona years, and it never fully restarted. He returned to the Camp Nou for 2 more seasons, scoring more goals than ever but contributing to a team that was visibly declining. Training absences, late nights that were harder to hide, the old hunger replaced by something more comfortable and less useful. When Pep Guardiola arrived in 2008 to rebuild Barcelona from the ground up, Ronaldinho was not part of the plan. His last game for the club was in March 2008. The era was over. AC Milan paid €35 million to bring him to Italy, where he spent 3 seasons offering glimpses of former brilliance without ever recapturing it consistently. He won a Serie A title in his final season at the San Siro, his last major honor at club level, before returning to Brazil, where the story had always been heading. Chapter 5, Home, The Final Dances. Brazil welcomed him back as a hero. At Flamengo, playing in the carnival atmosphere of the Maracana, he rediscovered something he had been missing: uncomplicated joy. He smiled again, that famous, unstoppable smile, and played with a freedom that felt genuine. At Atlético Mineiro, he found one last moment of real glory, the Copa Libertadores in 2013, dancing in South America's greatest final at the age of 33. A brief spell in Mexico at Querétaro followed, before a final, 9-game farewell at Fluminense brought the curtain down on 20 years of professional football. He had played on 4 continents. He had been the best in the world, and he walked away from the game with his smile still fully intact. Closing, there are 2 ways to tell the Ronaldinho story. The first is a tale of unfulfilled potential, of a talent so rare that even squandering half of it left behind more beauty than most careers manage in their entirety. A man who stood at the top of the mountain and decided the view was enough. The second is simpler. Ronaldinho gave the world something that cannot be measured in trophies or tallied in statistics. He gave people the experience of football played as pure, reckless, joyful art. He reminded a generation that at its deepest level, the game is not about pressing systems or marginal gains. It is about a child with a ball who has found something magical and cannot wait to show you. The free kick against England, the Bernabeu standing ovation, the 60,000 people at the Camp Nou leaning forward every single time he received the ball. These are not numbers, they are memories. They are exactly the reason we watch football in the first place. What do you think? Did Ronaldinho fulfill his potential, or did the world only get half the story? Leave your thoughts in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, give it a like, subscribe to the channel, and let me know which legend you want us to cover next. This is Deep Sports Stories. See you in the next one.